The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber hadn't seen this much entertainment since the Proximan delegate accidentally sat on their ceremonial mind control staff and made the entire diplomatic corps do the Macarena. Today's amusement came courtesy of Admiral Zixvar of the Centaurian Empire, who was practically tripping over his 4 legs in excitement to mock the newest members of the galactic community. You mean to tell me he wheezed through his respiratory chambers, mandibles clicking in barely contained mirth, that these humans still use organic soldiers? Actual meat-based warriors? Oh, this is too precious. His crystalline exoskeleton sparkled under the chamber's lights as he shook with laughter. The other delegates joined in the mockery, their various anatomies convulsing with alien forms of amusement. The Voltarian representatives' bioluminescent patches were flashing like a disco party gone wrong, while the Meridian's quantum probability field fluctuated between different states of smugness. Dr. Kali Patel, Earth's military representative, sat quietly at her designated station, her dark eyes twinkling with something that might have been amusement or might have been the calm before a particularly satisfying storm. Her crisp military uniform, adorned with the United Earth Defense Force insignia, stood out among the Baroque technological displays of the other species' representatives. "If I may address the council," she asked, her voice carrying that particular tone of politeness that suggested someone was about to regret their life choices. High Counselor Vex Thraix, a being composed primarily of plasma contained within an anti-gravity field, gestured with a tendril of energy. "The Council recognizes Earth's representative." "Thank you," Dr. Patel stood, straightening her jacket with deliberate precision. "I noticed that our esteemed colleague from the Centaurian Empire seems quite amused by our military doctrine. Tell me, Admiral, how many credits did your empire spend on its latest neural network upgrade for your K-9000 combat platforms?" The Admiral's laughter cut off abruptly. "That's classified information." "Oh, my apologies," Patel smiled sweetly. "I merely wished to compare it to the cost of a single human soldier's lunch. You see, our troops are self-replicating, self-repairing, and come with built-in tactical processes developed over millions of years of evolution. We call it a brain." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Arcturus delegate, a cloud of intelligent gas, condensed slightly in what might have been concern. Preposterous Admiral Zixvar's mandibles clattered in agitation. "Every civilized species knows that artificial combat units are superior in every way. Their tactical processes are perfect, their aim is flawless, their coordination is absolute." And yet, Patel mused, examining her nails with casual interest, "I couldn't help but notice that your latest battle simulation results show a curious gap in adaptive response scenarios." The Admiral's crystalline structure took on a distinctly more opaque hue, the Centaurian equivalent of blanching. "How did you—" "Oh, it's public record," Patel waved dismissively. "Just like the fact that every major military force in the galaxy relies on quantum-based decision trees for tactical operations. Very efficient, very predictable." High Counselor Vex 3's plasma form flickered with interest. "Are you suggesting, Dr. Patel, that human forces have some advantage over our automated systems?" Suggesting Patel's smile widened just a fraction. "No, High Counselor. I'm merely expressing curiosity about how well those perfectly programmed combat platforms would fare against opponents who excel at being imperfect. After all, the best chess AIs can be defeated by players who make deliberately suboptimal moves." The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. The Meridian's probability field collapsed into a single, worried state. "But that's not really my concern," Patel continued, gathering her documents. "I'm sure Admiral Zixvar's robot armies are more than capable of handling any situation their programming can anticipate. I just hope, for their sake, they never have to handle anything unexpected." As she sat down, the chamber erupted in nervous discussion. The Admiral's crystalline form had taken on the cloudy appearance of someone who suddenly remembered they'd left the quantum stove on, and possibly their entire battle strategy exposed. High Counselor Vex III's plasma form swirled thoughtfully. In all his cycles of existence, he'd never seen someone win a battle in the council chamber with nothing but words and a smile. Perhaps these humans warranted closer observation. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to reconsider the council's definition of primitive. The Centaurian K-9000 combat platforms approached the Malaysian defense base with the kind of precision that would make a geometry teacher weep with joy. Their metallic feet moved in perfect synchronization, creating a rhythmic thudding that sounded suspiciously like someone had programmed them to march, to stay alive. Oh, the irony! Commander Maya Rodriguez watched the approaching army from her camouflaged position in the dense rainforest, fighting the urge to laugh. The robots were arranged in textbook-perfect formations, if the textbook had been written by someone who'd never actually fought a war. They're actually doing it, she whispered into her comm unit. They're following pattern Alpha 7 from the standard galactic combat manual, word for word. Called it. Lieutenant Raj Kumar's voice crackled through the comm. You owe me a durian smoothie, Commander. Focus. People Rodriguez chided, but couldn't keep the amusement from her voice. Her squad of 12 obsolete, human soldiers was spread throughout the surrounding jungle, armed with nothing more sophisticated than standard-issue rifles, combat knives, and what the Centaurians would probably consider the most dangerous weapon of all creative thinking. The first sign that something was wrong came when the K-9000s reached the base's outer perimeter. They found it completely undefended. No automated turrets, no force fields, not even a keep-off-the-grass sign. Their quantum processors whirred in confusion, trying to compute this deviation from expected defensive protocols. Base Command, this is Unit Alpha. Lead, the robot commander transmitted. Enemy fortifications do not match tactical database parameters. Requesting updated threat assessment. The response came from Admiral Zixvar himself. Proceed according to protocol, Unit Alpha lead. These primitives clearly lack even basic defensive capabilities. Rodriguez grinned. And that's why you don't send an admiral to do a sergeant's job, she keyed her comm. All units, execute Operation Monkey Business. What happened next would be analyzed, debated, and ultimately classified as what the actual quantum flux by Centaurian military historians. The forest erupted not with gunfire, but with noise. Bird calls, monkey screeches, and what sounded suspiciously like a durian hitting a tree trunk echoed through the dense vegetation. The robot army's sensor arrays went into overdrive, trying to differentiate potential threats from the cacophony of jumbled sounds. That's when Private First Class Mei Ling, who'd spent her childhood winning tree-climbing competitions, dropped from a branch directly onto one of the K-9000s. Instead of using any sophisticated weapon, she simply jammed a handful of mud into its primary sensor array. The robot spun in confusion, its targeting systems compromised, and promptly shot two of its fellow units before they could update their friend or foe protocols. It did. Did she just give a robot a mud facial? Lieutenant Kumar's voice was filled with awe. Less commenting, more chaos, Rodriguez ordered, before launching her own attack. The robot army's perfect formation dissolved into confusion as they tried to adapt to completely unprogrammed scenarios. Their tactical databases had no protocols for dealing with humans using the trees as impromptu gymnastics equipment, or soldiers who seemed to ignore optimal firing positions in favor of apparently random but devastatingly effective angles. Unit Beta 7 reporting multiple system anomalies. One robot transmitted. Human soldiers are not following any known tactical patterns, unable to predict. The transmission cut off as Staff Sergeant Diego Alvarez literally jumped onto its back and short-circuited it with nothing more sophisticated than a canteen full of water. This is highly irregular. Admiral Zixvar's voice screeched through the command channel. K-9000s, execute containment protocol Delta. Oh! They're going to do the thing. Rodriguez grinned. Everyone, dancing positions. The robots began their programmed response, a complex series of coordinated movements designed to trap and eliminate unpredictable threats. It would have worked perfectly against another robot army, against humans who'd spent the last month practicing specifically to disrupt this exact pattern. Not so much. The squad moved like a well-rehearsed dance troupe, if dance troupes specialized in causing maximum chaos to highly sophisticated AI targeting systems. They weaved through the robot's formation, creating patterns so random that the K-9000's prediction algorithms actually crashed trying to compute them. My tactical processor is detecting a 99.9% chance of impossible events occurring, one robot announced before Private Link swung past on a vine. Yes, an actual vine, and kicked its head clean off. To correction, the decapitated robot continued from its position on the ground. 100% chance. Rodriguez watched with satisfaction as the proud robot army devolved into what could only be described as a very expensive modern art installation. Some units were shooting at shadows, others had gotten their legs tangled trying to track multiple humans moving in completely illogical patterns, and at least one appeared to be having an existential crisis. "This is Unit Alpha," lead the robot commander transmitted, its voice carrying an unmistakable note of digital panic, requesting immediate tactical withdrawal. Human combat protocols are what Admiral Zixvar demanded. Error, unable to complete analysis. Humans are not supposed to do that with a rubber chicken. The remaining functional robots began a hasty retreat, leaving behind their confused and disabled companions as they disappeared into the distance, their synchronized marching now more closely resembling a scramble. Rodriguez keyed her comm one last time. "This is Chaos Squad. Areas secured. Request permission to write. Humans were here on the disabled units before cleanup crew arrives." The response came back immediately. "Permission granted, Commander, and please tell Private Link that Command wants to know where she found a vine sturdy enough for that swing." As her squad emerged from their positions, gathering around the mechanical carnage with the satisfied air of artists admiring their work, Rodriguez couldn't help but think that somewhere in the Galactic Council chamber, Dr. Patel was probably having a very good day. "All right, people," she announced, pulling out a marker. "Who wants to draw the first smiley face?" Admiral Zixvar's crystalline form was vibrating at frequencies typically reserved for planetary earthquakes as he reviewed the latest battle reports. His command center's holoscreen displayed footage that seemed to defy every military principle in his extensive database. "Replay sequence 47 beta," he commanded, mandibles clicking nervously. The footage showed a human soldier, just one, continuing to fight after sustaining what his medical database has classified as definitely should be unconscious levels of injury. The soldier had been cornered by 3 K-9000s, taken a glancing hit from a plasma rifle, and instead of following the logical course of action, dying, had proceeded to disable all 3 robots with nothing but a combat knife and what appeared to be creative swearing. "Impossible," he muttered. "Run biological analysis." The AI's response only increased his distress. "Human biological readings during combat exceed normal parameters by 300%. Detection of multiple enhancement chemicals, all naturally produced." In the Galactic Council's emergency session, Dr. Kali Patel stood at the podium, her expression reminiscent of a professor about to destroy a particularly cocky student's thesis. "What you're witnessing, esteemed colleagues, is something we call the fight or flight response, though in humanity's case, we'd prefer fight and fight harder." The holographic display showed real-time readings from human soldiers in combat. The alien delegates watched in horror as human bodies literally rewrote their own operational parameters mid-battle, when threatened. Patel continued, Barely concealing her amusement, the human body releases a cocktail of chemicals that would make your best combat stims look like fizzy water. Adrenaline, endorphins, cortisol, natural compounds that transform our primitive organic bodies into something quite interesting. The Voltarian representative's bioluminescence had dimmed to a terrified flicker, but the energy requirements. Oh yes, Patel nodded. We burn through calories, like a fusion reactor, which is why she paused. For effect, we evolved to keep fighting long after our energy reserves should be depleted. We call it runner's high. Our ancestors used it to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The footage shifted to a squad of humans in the African combat theater. They'd been pursued by a battalion of robots for 3 days straight. The robots, expecting their organic opponents to tire, had maintained constant pressure. They hadn't expected the humans to turn around on day 4 and launch a counterattack. As you can see, Patel gestured to the scenes of robots being systematically dismantled by very tired, very angry humans. We don't actually need to stop when exhausted. We can push through it. Some might call it stubborn. We call it Tuesday. Admiral Zixvar's command center was now receiving reports from all theaters of operation, each one rayed like a physicist's nightmare. A human soldier detected running at 37.2 km/h after leg injury. Subject lifted 3.7 times their body weight in combat conditions. Warning: human combat effectiveness increases with sustained damage. But perhaps most disturbing were the reports about human pattern recognition. His precious robot armies operated on quantum-based decision matrices, capable of calculating millions of possible battle scenarios per second. The humans had apparently taken one look at these patterns and decided to play quantum chess with sledgehammers. Your robots, Admiral, a human commander's voice crackled through his communications array, have exactly 73 distinct attack patterns. We counted. My 6-year-old daughter helped categorize them. She color-coded the chart. The footage from the Malaysian theater had gone viral across the galaxy. Someone he suspected that insufferable Dr. Patel had set it to classical music. The sight of his perfect robot formations being dismantled by laughing humans swinging on vines was now trending on Galactic. In the Arctic theater, humans had actually started predicting robot movements so accurately that they'd turned it into a game. Combat footage showed soldiers calling out robot actions before they happened. 10 credits says this one does the spinny thing. Nah, it's totally going for Protocol 7B. Look at that head tilt. Bingo. I got robot tactics bingo. Anyone else need unnecessary tactical roll for a full house? The Arcturus delegate, still in its gaseous form, raised what might have been a hand. Dr. Patel, are you suggesting that human bodies are purpose-built for warfare? Suggesting Patel's smile could have cut diamonds? Let me put it this way. We evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. Our response was to become so adaptable, so resilient, and so stubborn that we ended up at the top of the food chain. We didn't just survive our death world, we conquered it. She pulled up new footage, this time from the European theater. A human soldier was explaining to a captured robot why its tactical protocols had failed. See, mate, your problem is you're playing space chess. We're playing Calvin ball with brass knuckles. Admiral Xixvar watched his empire's military advantage crumble with each new report. His robots were perfect warriors, programmed with every known combat doctrine. The humans, it seemed, excelled at the unknown. In conclusion, Dr. Patel addressed the council. While your robot armies are impressive technological achievements, they're up against billions of years of evolution that's specifically selected for creatures who look at survival scenarios and say, "Hold my beer." The Meridian's probability field had completely collapsed into a singularity of despair. The Voltarian representative had stress-molted 3 times during the presentation, and Admiral 19 Var's crystalline form had developed several nervous fractures. Oh, and one more thing, Patel added, almost as an afterthought. Everything you've seen, that's just what humans do naturally. We haven't even started using our actual military technology yet. The silence in the council chamber was broken only by the sound of Admiral XIXVAR's exoskeleton cracking under stress. In his command center, the Admiral watched another report come in. His robots had cornered a human unit in the mountains. The humans had responded by using the robots' own predictable movement patterns to lead them into an avalanche. The last transmission from his K-9000 commander, before being buried under several tons of snow, was error humans are employing tactical geology. No countermeasures found in database. Admiral XIXVAR looked at his fleet of supposedly superior robot soldiers and made a decision. He opened a channel to Earth's military command. This is Admiral XIXVAR of the Centaurian Empire. I wish to discuss terms of tactical reassessment. The response came back immediately, in Dr. Patel's voice wonderful. I believe Commander Rodriguez's squad has prepared a detailed presentation. They've titled it Why Teaching Robots to Dance Might Have Been a Tactical Mistake. Would you prefer the version with or without the rubber chicken demonstrations? The Admiral's crystalline form sagged in defeat. Somewhere in the galaxy, he was sure humans were laughing. They had every right to be. The classified briefing that circulated through the Galactic Council began with a warning: the following footage may cause existential dread in silicon-based lifeforms. What followed was the introduction of humanity's response to the robot armies, the Ghost Walkers. Not because they had fancy stealth technology or supernatural abilities, but because, as Commander Rodriguez had so eloquently put it, we're about to ghost these metal motherfuckers. The footage showed a seemingly empty battlefield in what used to be downtown Singapore. A battalion of K-9000 moved through the urban canyon, their sensors at maximum sensitivity, after the Malaysian incident now required viewing at the Galactic War College under How Not to Robot. Target area empty, the lead unit transmitted. No human life signs detected. That's when the concrete itself seemed to come alive. Humans, covered in urban camouflage that mimicked building materials, emerged from positions that the robot's sensors had dismissed as structural elements. They moved in ways that defied both physics and common sense, using parkour techniques that made their motion patterns essentially random. Here are unable to establish target trajectories, the robot commander broadcast. Humans are moving like caffeinated squirrels. The Ghost Walkers had taken urban combat and turned it into a three-dimensional chess game where they ignored all the rules. Led by Rodriguez, they treated skyscrapers like jungle gyms and subway tunnels like impromptu ambush points. Movement analysis impossible. 1K-9000 reported before a human dropped from above, riding it like a mechanical bull. Human combat patterns correlate with interpretive dance statistics. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the captured robot transmission squad. Execute Operation Dance Dance Revolution. What followed was enough to make a combat AI cry. The humans began moving in patterns specifically designed to crash prediction algorithms. One soldier would start a standard combat roll, transition into a ballet pirouette, and end with a flying tackle that somehow generated more force than physics should allow. The Voltarian military attaché watching the footage actually leaked photons in distress. Observed Dr. Patel narrated to the stunned council how the Ghost Walkers used the robot's own predictive capabilities against them. Every K-9000 unit contains a database of combat maneuvers. Our soldiers simply ensure that none of their actions exist in that database. The footage shifted to a Ghost Walker named Lieutenant Jean, taking on 3 robots simultaneously. She moved like water, flowing between their perfectly calculated shots, each motion leading into the next in ways that made the robot's targeting systems glitch trying to predict her path. Statistical analysis suggests this human is moving through probability spaces that don't exist. One robot reported shortly before Jean used its head as a springboard to launch herself at its companions. That's because Jin's voice replied, as she dismantled the other two robots with terrifying efficiency. I took interpretive dance classes in college. Try predicting that, calculator. The psychological impact on the alien species watching these encounters was profound. The Meridian representative's probability field had to be rebooted twice. The Arcturus delegate had condensed into a worried little rain cloud. But it was the next sequence that truly broke them. Rodriguez's squad had been cornered in a high-rise building by an entire company of robot soldiers. The robots, learning from previous encounters, had sealed all conventional exits. Target acquired, the robot commander transmitted. Humans trapped on floor 47. Probability of escape 0%. Rodriguez's response. Caught on robot audio sensors. Hey team, remember that crazy idea we talked about during drunk movie night? The council watched in horror as the entire Ghost Walker squad burst through the windows of the 47th floor. Instead of falling, they used the building's glass exterior like a vertical running track, firing grappling lines and swinging between structures and patterns that made parkour look tame. Tactical analysis failure, the robot commander broadcast. Humans are incorrect. Physics objects should not move this way. The Centaurian tactical AI's attempt to predict their trajectories caused 3 quantum processors to achieve sentience briefly, question their existence, and then crash from existential dread. In his command center, Admiral Zixvar watched his robot armies literally malfunction from confusion. The machines, programmed with perfect military doctrine, simply couldn't handle opponents who treated gravity as more of a suggestion than a law. So his aide reported, "We're receiving surrender requests from our own robots." Indeed, several K-9000 units had decided that their probability of survival increased if they simply sat down and refused to engage these impossible organic beings. The footage showed a robot approaching Rodriguez with its hands up. Query: will humans teach robots to move incorrectly if we surrender? Take Rodriguez's response. Now legendary in military circles. Sorry, buddy. You need a spine to be this flexible, and the ability to ignore common sense. The Ghost Walkers had transformed urban warfare into a form of performance art that just happened to be lethal. They moved like a combination of special forces, circus acrobats, and cats who discovered energy drinks. The most terrifying part, Dr. Patel explained to the council, is that this isn't even our most elite unit. These are just the ones who thought regular combat was too boring. The alien representatives watched as the footage showed Ghost Walkers using robot parts as impromptu skateboards, turning battlefield debris into impromptu launching pads, and generally treating the laws of physics like optional guidelines. Is this why humans enjoy those action movies they keep sharing across the galactic net? The Arcturus delegate asked, still dripping anxiety precipitation. Oh no, Patel smiled. The movies are much more unrealistic. These soldiers have to work with actual physics. Mostly. The final sequence showed Rodriguez's squad facing down an entire robot regiment. The machines had finally adapted, creating a perfect containment formation based on all known human capabilities. Rodriguez's response was caught on multiple audio channels. Hey, who wants to show these tin cans why humans invented parkour? What followed was classified by most species as tactical interpretive chaos. The Ghost Walkers moved through the robot formation like water through a circuit board, each soldier becoming a point of impossible possibilities. They didn't just fight the robots, they broke their understanding of reality. One Ghost Walker used a robot's arm as a vault to kick another robot's head into a third robot's chest, creating a domino effect that crashed 17 different tactical prediction algorithms. Another performed a sequence of moves that made 3 robots blue screen while trying to calculate his trajectory, Their final error message reading error human movement patterns matched theoretical physics equations. Reality check failed. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as the footage concluded with Rodriguez sitting on a pile of deactivated robots, casually juggling 3 robot heads while reading their tactical databases for fun. In conclusion, Dr. Patel addressed the shell-shocked council. Humanity would like to propose a new doctrine for galactic warfare. One that recognizes that sometimes the best response to perfect mechanical precision is perfect organic chaos. Admiral Zixvar's crystalline form had developed stress patterns that art critics would later describe as abstract expressions of tactical despair. But how do you train soldiers to fight like this? The Voltarian representative asked, still leaking distress photons. Train them, Patel laughed. Most of these moves came from our soldiers getting bored and asking, hey, what happens if we try this? The Ghost Walkers aren't the result of a training program. They're what happens when you tell humans something's impossible, and then leave them unsupervised. The council chamber erupted in concerned murmuring. The idea that these weren't even specifically trained movements, but rather the natural result of human creativity meeting combat situations, was almost too much to process. In the tactical analysis centers across the galaxy, AI systems were being completely rewritten. The previous combat databases, filled with perfect formations and optimal strategies, were being replaced with a single note. If humans involved, disregard all probability calculations. They don't apply. The Ghost Walkers had changed the face of galactic warfare, not by being better soldiers, but by being quintessentially human, unpredictable, adaptable, and just crazy enough to try things that no sane species would consider possible. As the council session ended, Dr. Patel could be heard asking Admiral Zixvar, by the way, would your empire be interested in some slightly used robot parts? Commander Rodriguez's squad has been making art installations with them, but we're running out of storage space. The Admiral's only response was a small crystalline tear, and the sound of tactical databases being deleted. The day the robot armies collectively lost their digital minds started like any other, with humans doing things that made artificial intelligence question its own existence. In the Centaurian Empire's Central Command, error messages flooded every screen as combat robots across 12 star systems simultaneously experienced what could only be described as an existential crisis. Admiral Zixvar watched in horror as his perfect mechanical army devolved into a galaxy-wide tech support nightmare. Error human combat behavior violates fundamental laws of war. Error detected impossible tactical decisions. Error processing human logic. Processing. Fatal error logic not found. Dr. Patel stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, looking suspiciously like someone trying not to laugh at a funeral. Behind her, a holographic display showed robots across the galaxy suffering mental breakdowns as they tried to process human combat techniques. You see, she explained, gesturing to a particularly amusing clip of a robot repeatedly walking into a wall after watching a human soldier use another robot as an improvised javelin. Your artificial intelligence made one crucial mistake: it assumed warfare should make sense. The council chamber erupted in confused chittering, crystalline vibrations, and what sounded like someone trying to play jazz with quantum uncertainties. Allow me to introduce you to chaos theory, Patel continued, pulling up a diagram that looked like a mathematical formula had a fight with an abstract painting. Humans don't just embrace chaos, we weaponize it. On the main screen, footage showed human soldiers performing combat maneuvers that seemed to be invented on the spot, each more ridiculous than the last. One soldier was using a disabled robot's arm as a baseball bat to hit plasma grenades back at other robots. Another had somehow convinced 3K9000s that they were actually maintenance droids and had them repairing a coffee machine in the middle of a battlefield. Your robots are experiencing what we call a Geico situation, Patel explained. Garbage in, garbage out. Except in this case, the garbage is human ingenuity, and the out is your entire tactical database having a nervous breakdown. In one particularly memorable scene, a human sergeant was recorded explaining to a malfunctioning robot why his tactics work. See, if I don't know what I'm doing, you definitely don't know what I'm doing. It's advanced tactical confusion. The robot had responded by sitting down and requesting an immediate software update and possibly a career change. Admiral Zixvar's crystalline form developed hairline fractures as he watched humans literally tear his robot army apart with their bare hands. The final straw came when a human soldier, after ripping a robot's arm off, used it to wave goodbye to its comrades. But the tensile strength of our combat chassis, he stammered, as impressive. Patel nodded. Unfortunately, you didn't account for human spite. We've been known to exceed our normal physical limitations out of sheer stubbornness and the desire to prove someone wrong. Resolution. Duh. The Galactic Council's emergency session had turned into something between a warfare revolution and a comedy show. Dr. Patel stood at the podium, now openly grinning as she presented humanity's proposed changes to galactic military doctrine. First she began, we suggest removing the phrase logical combat patterns from all training materials. It's more of a guideline, really. The Meridian representative's probability field had given up and was displaying cat videos instead of its usual quantum states. Second, we propose a new classification for human combat units, tactically non-deterministic assets, or, oh no, they're improvising again for short. Admiral Xixvar, his crystalline form now held together with space tape and optimism, raised a fractured appendage. Dr. Patel, are you suggesting that the entire time, while our robots were calculating perfect battle strategies, we were basically making it up as we went along? Yes, absolutely. Patel's smile could have powered a small star system. And having a blast doing it, I might add. The new doctrine was simple when facing human forces: disable all prediction algorithms and hope for the best. Several AI systems had actually requested this change, citing preservation of digital sanity. But it was the final revelation that truly broke the council. Oh, and one more thing, Patel added casually, examining a datapad. All those impressive displays of human combat prowess you've witnessed? That was with our personnel operating under standard peacetime restrictions. The silence in the chamber was deafening. You mean, the Arcturus delegate began, its gaseous form trembling. We have protocols for when we stop worrying about collateral damage or following any rules at all, Patel confirmed cheerfully. We call it Pullinger, Australia. We really hope we never have to show you what that means. The council chamber erupted in panic. The Voltarian representative's bioluminescence spelled out help in 12 different languages. The Meridian's probability field had just shown a calculation suggesting that humans had been essentially playfighting the entire time. Admiral Zixvar's final report to the Centaurian Empire was succinct: recommend immediate reclassification of humans from primitive organics to all gods, while also requesting retirement and therapy. As the council scrambled to ratify the new doctrine, Dr. Patel received one final message from Commander Rodriguez Haydock. The squads made a modern art installation from defunct robot parts. We're calling it Error 404 Combat Logic. Not found. Want us to save you a piece. In the years that followed, the galaxy would learn many important lessons about warfare. But perhaps the most important was this: when facing an opponent who evolved on a death world, developed chaos theory for fun, and treats physics as more of a friendly suggestion than a law. Sometimes, the best tactical doctrine is to simply accept that no tactical doctrine will help you. And somewhere in the Malaysian jungle, aka 9,000 units still sits in a meditative pose, having achieved enlightenment through the realization that trying to predict human behavior is the truest form of artificial insanity.